Hey guys, it's Craig Miller from 67 The Score, 67thescore.com. I'm here with Sugar Hill at Bad Boy Gym, Royal Oaks, Michigan. He is the nephew of the late, great Emmanuel Stewart. Sugar, tell me about, what did Emmanuel mean to you, and what are you trying to do with the new Crank Gym here in Michigan?
Well, Emmanuel was, he was like my father. I looked at him as a father. He's my uncle, but he's been the male role model in my life, for 41 years. So everything that he did, I looked up to and tried to mimic or, try to do as well or as, better as he did, better than him, because that was my mentor. It was like my dad. I always try to, when you got a father, you always try to, you want to beat your father. You want to, be like your father or, be as great as him or just, make him proud of you. So that was one of the things that I've always tried to do in my life was make him proud of me. And, I know he's proud of me. He was proud of me, when he was alive still, and I know he's proud of me now.
It's great to see that you're continuing the legacy of the Crank Gym. What would have Emmanuel wanted, and why was it shut down in the first place?
Well, Emmanuel, we were working on a gym, getting a new gym, a new location, a bigger facility so that it'll house amateurs and professionals comfortably. And that was something that we were working on before he passed. The gym, after he passed away, the gym was closed. It was located in the city of Detroit, not a very good neighborhood. And the gym was closed for the reason of his keepsakes in the gym. Ring, posters, pictures, and things like that, bags, just so no one would go in and vandalize that building, knowing that he's not around and do any damage and, try to just disrupt the flow of the program. So that's the reason the gym was closed. I happened to be in Austria at the time, over in Vladimir Klitschko training camp, training Jonathan Banks while he was training Vladimir Klitschko. So it was, it was a very emotional time, and I didn't have any say-so in the gym closing. When they told me it was closed, I just said, okay, well, whatever. What can I do about it? I'm, over 10,000 miles away, So, I'm looking forward to putting something together to get a gym started back. That's what Emmanuel wanted. That's what I want. And that's what he would have wanted. And it'll be probably sometime, let's say, this year. I'll just leave it like that. I don't want to say when to predict it, but it'll be this year sometime.
Okay, cool. Jonathan's story is great. In 2012, he trained Vladimir Klitschko. He also fought heavyweight fighter Seth Mitchell and knocked him out. I mean, both in the same year. How did he accomplish such a feat to train one of the greatest fighters ever and to beat a great heavyweight fighter in Seth Mitchell? Tell me a little bit about Jonathan.
Well, Jonathan, I've been training Jonathan since he was an amateur. I believe he was about 16, going on 17 years old. And he was out at the Crank Gym, and we were going on tournaments. And he ended up losing a fight in the tournament. And from that point on, I personally started working with him because he liked the way that my guys, they fought. And we trained. Those guys my guys were tuned better than the other guys at the gym. And it was because Emmanuel, he taught me how to train the fighters. And I used whatever he told me and took it in the gym, and that's how I was able to, establish a strong amateur team. But Jonathan was one of my top amateurs. He went to the 2004 Olympic trials, lost to guys like Anthony Durrell, and politics too. So, but anyway, Jonathan, he turned professional, and he's been a good professional. He worked his way all the way up the ladder. He had a big, exciting fight, which I guess was probably Fight of the Year, I think, on ESPN with Alicio Castillo, and that was, that was a very proud moment in the Crank history. And me and Emmanuel worked that corner together, and it was a lot of learning experiences for me working the corners with Emmanuel, and also, living with him. So I just picked up and absorbed a lot of things that was able to be passed on through Jonathan. Jonathan also lived with me, and then Jonathan also lived with Emmanuel at one point. So he's been around me and Emmanuel pretty much, for about 15 years now. So he's just absorbed a lot of information, a lot of knowledge in boxing to be able to go out there and train Vladimir Klitschko. Funny to say, me as a coach and Emmanuel, we'd always say if we had anybody that we wanted to work our corners and we fight again, it would be our fighters. which would be like a Jonathan Banks, a Andy Lee, those kind of guys who have actually learned boxing and is able to teach it. I think that's so important in boxing to be able to know how to teach it because you can understand it a lot better. And that's actually when Jonathan actually got his second wind, or he was reborn into boxing when he started training Vladimir, because I always told him, I said, you have to practice what you teach. So that enabled him to boost himself up to be a much better boxer, and what he showed when he fought Seth Mitchell on November 17th with a devastating second-round knockout, which they called an upset. But we knew it wasn't going to be an upset. We knew what we were going to do with Seth Mitchell.
Would Jonathan Banks ever fight Klitschko? Would that ever happen?
No, that won't happen. That situation is, a question that's asked a lot. But sure. Jonathan and Vladimir are very close, and that's actually how Jonathan ended up training Vladimir, because he's been around the camps with Emmanuel for so long. But in the meantime, before Emmanuel even got to camp with Vladimir, Jonathan went to camp, and those two worked out for 2 weeks every time. Just those two. Nobody else was around. They did conditioning and everything else. So they became close and have a great friendship. And that goes to say with the brother, Vitaly. Right. Those three together are, close like a family. Jonathan and Vladimir are very close.
What's next for Jonathan? You got a fight coming up?
He was scheduled to fight Seth Mitchell on February the 16th.
The rematch.
And, the rematch. And he broke his thumb. Broke his thumb on his right hand. So that fight had to be postponed. We don't have a date yet, a rescheduled date. We're just waiting for the doctors to say it's okay for him to start training again and him get a clearance from the doctors on his thumb.
This weekend, the Bundridge fight and Ishe Smith. It was the undercard fight. Devin Alexander got hurt. What does this fight mean for both fighters, Cornelius and Ishe Smith?
The fight means a lot for both fighters. Like, they're both up in age, but, for Ishe, this is his big shot. This is a once-in-a-lifetime. This is his dream. So he's going to come out and fight hard. K9, this is his dream also, to be able to fight, defending the world championship at home in Detroit. And nobody has defended their championship at home in Detroit since Thomas Hearns. So it's a lot on K9's shoulders, but this is what he's been up for years, something that he wanted to do. This is something that me and him talked about, and I told him this was the best thing to do. With the decision that he was given on the opponents and where to take the fights at. So, this means a lot for K9 more so than it does for Ishe. You're fighting at home. You're going to protect your home. It's kind of funny to say, but, Detroit is a fight town. You look at the Pistons when they played the Indiana Pacers, and the crowd, they backed their people 100%. And that was a big fiasco. They ended up jumping on the players coming into the stands. The crowd jumped on the Indiana Pacers. So Detroit's a fight town. They love fights. I guess it's to go with hockey, I say. Fighting in hockey, Detroit is a hockey town. Detroit is also a great fight town. So he's going to fight for his city. He's going to fight for his belt. He's going to fight for his family. And, fight to stay champion so he can fight the best of the best out there, like Mayweather's, Canelo Alvarez, those top guys. He wants to fight them.
They were both on the hit show Contender on ESPN. I lasted about, 3-4 years. They were. Did you like the show, the way it was produced? And can you see something like that ever being in production again?
You know what? I thought that the show, The Contender, was a very good show to give a lot of boxers an opportunity who may have not been known, may have had a bad decision or a bad fight. It gave them an opportunity to actually make a name for themselves, whether they won a Contender or they didn't, which K9 didn't win it, but he's a world champion now. But it gave them an opportunity to kind of start over again, to have a fan base and a following. So I thought the show was a very good show for those reasons, and it helped a lot of guys out.
Can you give me some of your background? You're obviously Emanuel Stewart's nephew. You were a former Detroit police officer. Tell me how you got in the sport, and tell me how the streets of Detroit maybe helped you, into boxing.
Well, I got into the sport a long time ago. I would be over at Emmanuel's house when I was a kid. I don't know how old I was. I guess from what I can remember, about 4 or 5 years old, maybe, going to the gym, going on trips with Tommy, Milton, Elmer, Jimmy Paul, going on amateur trips with those guys and being thrown in the room with those guys, as if I was a fighter. I remember one time we was in a room, but Stephen McCoy was one of my best friends. He was a '84 gold medalist, which was Milton McCoy's younger brother. But we became best friends because he was the shortest out of everybody. So I thought me and him were kind of the same age, but he's really like about 8 years older than me, So me and him hung out a lot. But that's, how I got started into boxing. It was just something, being around my uncle, and that's what he did. And I wanted him to look at me and say, wow, look at my nephew, he can do it too, So it's just something that's always been a part of me. And the Crunk family, those guys, Milton and Tommy, those guys are like my family too. I've been around them since I can remember. And, I don't treat them any different. They don't treat me any different. And the Crunk team has always been like a family. And that's how I believe that they became a strong force in boxing because of the family unity. The guys train hard in the gym, with each other and push each other, which made them go out there and win fights, win tough fights.
What about being a police officer? How did it help you, at the gym? How long were you a police officer?
I was a police officer for over 11 years. And it helped me out, actually, with boxing, being able to deal with different people in the sport of boxing. As far as fighters, they come from different backgrounds, different family households, and I was able to see those things being a police officer working the streets. It gave me a lot of knowledge dealing with different emotions, just a lot of different things in life that people have gone through. I've seen those things, so I can kind of relate to them. In that sort of a sense. At some point, I wasn't working on the streets. I ended up working out at the court. So that gave me another lesson in life to learn, which was being more professional and dealing with people in a professional setting instead of just on the streets. So I learned how to deal with rough situations. I learned how to deal with professional situations. And I also learned a lot working in the court as far as, legal matters, as far as contracts, just different, things that have to do with boxing as far as law or just the whole judicial system. So it just taught me a lot. And, I'm very appreciative of the way, the way I've lived my life, being able to be a police officer, being able to, retire, from being a police officer, and being able to grow up around Emmanuel and learn everything from him.
Before I let you go, Kronk versus Chicago, two great boxing cities. We're not getting a lot of publicity through the media in Chicago, but Detroit's great. Tell me about how can we continue the annual event, Kronk versus Chicago's gym, all the gyms in Chicago.
Well, first of all, it's been a great rivalry, and I would have to say I think we've got the most wins out of the rivalry so far, but we got our butts kicked a few times, and that made us all come back a little harder. But in order to continue the tradition, first thing I need to do is I need to get a gym to get my amateur program back together. Then we can have good fighters versus the Chicago good fighters. Chicago's always got a lot of talented fighters. And I want to be able to go into Chicago with the best of my fighters to battle the best of Chicago fighters, which brings out the best in that show always, Crunk versus Chicago.
Thanks so much for joining me, Sugar. Good luck to you, and I hope that gym opens soon so I can come visit it.
Okay, thank you. It will.
Thanks, man.